HarperCollins and Harper Audio present Defund, Black Lives, Policing, and Safety for All by Sandy Hudson. Performed by Sandy Hudson.
For my parents, Donovan and Juliet, I love you dearly. I don't think we can rely on governments, regardless of who is in power, to do the work that only mass movements can do. Angela Davis, freedom is a constant struggle. Introduction. In August 2020, after the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, I took a 3-day trip to Portland, Oregon, to support activists who were protesting police violence. The National Guard had been called in, and several people, including journalists, had been seriously injured in the crackdown by law enforcement. It was the height of the COVID-19 lockdowns, and a long road trip was my only travel option. On the day I was scheduled to leave, I checked out of my hotel early, eager to get on the road and back home to Los Angeles. I was almost out the door when I was approached by a blonde woman who turned out to be the owner. She asked if I had enjoyed my time in Portland and why I had decided to visit at a time when the city was a hotbed of protest and police activity. When I told her I was there in support of activists, she beamed. She was proud of her business's support for the movement against police brutality. Black Lives Matter signs were plastered on every wall and displayed out of every window in her establishment. She was all for the movement, you see, except for one thing she just couldn't understand. A bit of messaging she thought was ruining our shot at winning, whatever that meant to her. Why, she wondered, would we be calling to defund the police? I was exhausted, but she offered me a coffee and insisted that I sit and chat with her for a moment. She presented a thought experiment I had been posed countless times. If the police were defunded, what would she do if someone broke into her home and stole her valuables? Who would she call? The question was not disingenuous, and this woman was nice enough, so I delayed my departure to work through the hypothetical with her. First, I asked who she would call today if she were a victim of theft. She said the police, of course. When I pointed out that the police would have already failed at prevention in this scenario, since she would have already been the victim of theft, she conceded that this was a good point, but insisted that what would happen next was crucial. Police officers would arrive, gather evidence, investigate the crime, and catch the perpetrator. Perhaps there would be an investigation, I said. But did she know the chances of the police charging someone, and not necessarily the right person, in the case of burglary in the United States? She was stunned when I told her it was less than 15%. There was no way, in her mind, that the rates could possibly be that low. But they are. Her perception of police effectiveness was wildly out of step with reality. So, what would we do if the police were defunded? Probably the same thing we do with the police extremely funded, I told her. Call our insurance companies to recoup as much of the value of what was stolen as we could. I understand that for many who first heard about the idea of police abolition during the 2020 uprisings, the idea can seem absurd and unfeasible. But much of that resistance is the result of pervasive propaganda that makes false assumptions about police feel like common sense, as well as narrow views of safety that position police as our best and only resource for addressing our various social ills. The consequences for this distorted view of policing are dire. Policing is currently the primary societal strategy for addressing issues related to poverty, mental health,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?